Good morning. The Hearing Board of the South Coast Air Quality Management District is in session. Today is Thursday, August 23rd, 2018. The time is just after 9:05 a.m., and we are meeting in the Hearing Board room in Diamond Bar. We have one change to the calendar today, a small change. Tesoro Refining and Marketing Company, LLC, case number 4982-107, the pre-hearing teleconference was rescheduled to December since the parties are in agreement and simply waiting for EPA approval. We have one matter to hear today, and then we have our hearing board general meeting. So we're going to begin with the matter we have for this morning, and that is Quality Aluminum Forge, case number 6118-1 for an interim variance. And who is representing Quality Aluminum Forge today?
Sam Hathaway.
Can you restate your name and spell it for the record, and then also if you can just tell us your title?
Sam Hathaway, Facilities Manager, SAMHATHAWAY.
Thank you, Mr. Hathaway. And who is representing the executive officer today?
Nancy S. Feldman for the executive officer.
Good morning, Ms. Feldman. Okay, Mr. Hathaway, have you been before the board before?
No.
Okay, hold on one second. So you are asking the board today for an interim variance, and in the case of an interim variance or an emergency variance, there is no notice given to the public, and public notice is very important to the hearing board, obviously, and to the public in matters like this. So when that occurs, what we do is we bifurcate. We split the hearing into two separate hearings. So the first part of the hearing is going to be for this hearing board to determine whether there is good cause to proceed with a hearing in absence of notice to the public in this case. And I'm going to tell you some of the findings that we need to make a good cause determination, and hopefully they'll pop up. There you go. So these are some of the questions that, as you're testifying today, or you have any witnesses who might be testifying, that we need to have you cover. And I'll just quickly go over it, and that is that you either are in violation of a rule or regulation or a permit condition, or that violation is imminent. Second of all, that the circumstances that led to the violation or the pending violation could not reasonably have been avoided by your company or anticipated in time to have a noticed hearing, to the public hearing. Also, that you exercised diligence in petitioning as soon as you knew or should have known that you would be in violation, or the company. And that a denial of an interim variance hearing or an interim variance by this board and having to wait until a noticed hearing, and I'm not sure if you applied for a short variance. So that can be heard, actually we have a hearing date for September 12th. So between now and September 12th, what would be the impact to your company if you could not get that interim variance? So those are the kind of issues that we will go over in that first part of the hearing. And then if we make a determination, we'll move to the second part of the hearing, which is the actual variance hearing, and I'll talk about that at that time if we get to that point. The way it's going to work is I'm going to come to you first. If you want to make a brief opening statement about how you filed quickly or couldn't avoid the circumstances that led to you coming to us today, then I'm going to ask Ms. Feldman if she has an opening statement also on behalf of the executive officer of the district. And then I'll come to you for any testimony, and then Ms. Feldman will ask you questions, and the board will ask questions as well. And then if Ms. Feldman has any witnesses, she'll put them on, and then we will make a decision here today and then move on. So first, Mr. Hathaway, I'm going to ask you, I assume you'll be testifying today as well, giving evidence?
Yes.
And do you have anyone else with you?
Maria Rodriguez, our Environmental Health and Safety.
Is she here?
She's making copies.
Oh, okay. Well, then when she comes back, should we wait? Do you want to go off the record while she makes copies? Do you need her testimony?
No, I don't. We can
Okay.
proceed.
So I'm going to ask you to rise, and any person who might be testifying on behalf of the district to please rise to be sworn in. Please raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Hathaway, would you like to give a brief opening statement on good cause?
Well, on the reason that I'm asking for this, our equipment was originally supposed to arrive on 7/23/18. On 7/16/18, I found out that the equipment was not going to arrive on that date. So I prepared 8 copies and filled out my variance request, had our, and then had a check cut for, I believe, $1,200, and gave it to our receptionist to send certified mail. So on August, and then I was told that I would hear within a period of time, within a month or so, whether I would have a hearing date. So I got an envelope back that said there was no postage on it. I got the original check back with my original 8 copies. I believe on the 20th, that same day, I called and I came in and came to the clerk's office with the original check and explained what had happened. And I was told that I needed to file for an interim as well as the short term. So I have, she's making copies. I have our original, I have copies of the original check. And I also had to pay an additional fee for this. And so what I brought copies of we're a public company, so I wanted to, one way I could prove that the check was originally cut on that date, I brought the check register, and you can see that, the difference in time. So you can see that I did cut the check on that day. And so that was the reason. That's the reason that I'm having to ask for an interim.
Thank you. And then you'll have a chance to more fully tell your story in just a moment. I'm going to ask Ms. Feldman if you have an opening on good cause.
Well, Mr. Hathaway knows that I had some concerns about good cause. The hearing board can see this is a very minimal petition, to say the least, and so I think there's a lot of facts and circumstances that we just don't have until Mr. Hathaway has an opportunity to more fully explain. He and I did speak yesterday by phone. He explained the circumstance, and I urged him to just bring whatever information he has to substantiate his representations to the board about why he could not have gotten this petition before you any sooner than he did. So I sit with you and look forward to hearing more about it and seeing what evidence Mr. Hathaway can produce.
Thank you, Ms. Feldman. Mr. Hathaway, if you could give us a little bit more of the story, and in particular, a few items would be helpful. Number one, if you could tell us specifically what part of 1430, if you know, we should be looking at, and what was the requirement, what was the date by which that requirement needed to be satisfied, and when your company started working towards that requirement, so sort of a timeline leading up to the date by which you will find yourself in violation or have already. And then if you could explain a little bit more about the certified mail and not having any postage and having to cut a different check. So if we could just fill in some of those blanks, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, we received a permit to construct on 2/21/18. We cut a purchase order on 4/30/18 with a company called Clean Air Specialists to construct a bag house with a HEPA filter system. Total budget of $480,000, which was to install and deliver bag house equipment as well as building modifications to our plant. and moving equipment from one side of the plant to another. So we have one contained area for all of our aluminum dust particle collection. The original installation was to be completed on 8/24/18, and construction, and so 8/24/18, equipment was supposed to originally arrive on 7/23/18. I found out the equipment was not going to arrive on 7/16/18. Now, prior to that, Craig Morris had called me and said that if we felt that if we were going to have any delay in this, that it wasn't that originally, I believe Marilyn Potter had told me that we needed to keep in touch with the AQMD if there was going to be any delay in this baghouse project. Craig Morris called me and told me that if there was going to be a delay, he explained to me about this process about the variance. So then on 7/16, I submitted everything for that variance. There's been a manufacturing delay. We've spent quite a bit of money so far on this project, and we were planning to be right on time until this equipment manufacturer couldn't deliver.
Anything else?
No.
Okay. Ms. Feldman, questions for Mr. Hathaway?
Sure. Do you have a copy of the rule by any chance in front of you?
No. I have the permit.
Right. So remind me, what was the date on which the permit was issued, the permit to construct?
2/21/18.
Okay. For the hearing board primarily, and for you as well, Rule 1430D8, which if the hearing board has a copy of the rule in front of them, is on page 5 of the rule at the bottom. That pertains to total enclosures with negative air. It states that the owner or operator shall vent the total enclosure for any metal grinding or metal cutting operation to an emission control device that meets the requirements of subdivision E no later than 6 months after a permit to construct for the emission control device is issued by the executive officer. Is that the provision of the rule from which you're seeking a variance?
Yes.
Okay. Could you explain just very briefly to the hearing board what it is your company does and what the emission control device is designed to do?
We manufacture aluminum parts for aerospace, primarily commercial and military aerospace. And we have forging ovens where the aluminum is cut in bars, it's forged and into a specific shape. Now from there, the specification is not exact, so we have to either grind or mill down these aluminum pieces so they can in turn go to our machine shop or outside suppliers before they go to the customer. So these little metal grinding bits are the particles that need to be contained. Now, is that enough? Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Okay.
So what kind of control equipment did you apply for a permit?
Okay, it's a dust collector and HEPA filters. Let's see if I can explain it here.
Is it a bag house?
It's a baghouse, complete baghouse.
Okay, the hearing board is familiar, so.
Okay.
It's a bag house. Where do you currently perform your grinding operations?
Currently, we have two buildings that are adjacent to each other, one at 820 North Cypress, which is an older facility, and a new facility, which is at 794 North Cypress. Now, at the end of 2016, we opened that facility, and of course, we did the permitting and all of everything you need to do to put this building together. And at that time, the AQMD 1430 wasn't there yet. So what we did is we built our facility to comply with the AQMD rules for dust collection at that time at considerable cost. And then after we opened up, we found out the 1430 came along. So thusly, we have to take out our area that we just built that was brand new, and now we have to move it to our other building where there's more room because we have to combine. We have an operation in one building that do similar things, two operations. We have to combine them into one operation. So that means we've had to take out a lunchroom, make the area much bigger, move everything over, and at considerable, quite an extensive operation. So that's what the process we're in now, and the only hitch has been the equipment delivery.
Okay. So when the bag house is delivered, you're actually going to move your grinding operation into a new space that will be totally enclosed, right?
Right.
And under negative air.
Correct, correct.
Where you're doing your grinding now, is that a totally enclosed space?
It's an enclosed space, but it has plastic curtains. So that's about the only barrier for everything to get out. I can show you a picture, but
No, that's okay.
all right.
Is that space under negative air?
No,
Okay. When you testified that your permit was issued February 21st, I believed I heard in your opening that you anticipated that the bag house would be installed on August 24th?
it would be completely installed and ready to initiate, going for turnkey, ready to roll on the 24th.
Okay,
Eight
so that's
2014.
already like a few days past the 6 months,
Right.
isn't it?
Well, these are estimates. These are estimates from the manufacturer, the guy that's installing everything, and said, "I'm sure it'll be earlier, but I'm going to give you an approximate date timeline."
I see, okay. So on July 16th, I believe you said you were informed by who? The vendor that your...
Clean air
equip-
specialist, yes.
Yeah, this is a recorded record, so don't talk over me, please. That's okay. It takes a little bit to get used to it. So, okay, let me ask you the question again, that it was on July 16th that you were informed that there was a delay in the delivery?
Yes.
Okay. And what did you do immediately thereafter?
Since Craig Morris had called me and let me know if there was going to be a delay, we actually had to file paperwork for a variance, and that's what I did that and had a check cut and made 8 copies of the paperwork and sent it in to AQMD.
Okay. And that's what, that package was ultimately returned to you?
Yes,
For lack of postage?
yes.
Do you have the envelope?
No, I don't. As we spoke, our cleaning lady, our in-house cleaning person, threw it away. I mean, and I was out of the office, and then so I'm sorry I don't have it, but I do have. I have the original check, and I do have our system generated statement that I'm going to pass out. that
Right,
can
once you
see.
have copies.
Right.
Okay. I believe you also said that you were told that you'd get a hearing date within a month or so?
Yeah, well, I was.
Who told you that?
I believe Craig told me it would take about a month or so, or maybe when I called. I was just under the impression, that's why I was surprised when it came back, because I thought that I would be hearing any time, because it would take a while for me to get a hearing.
Okay. Have you had contact with the vendors since all this has gone down?
Yes.
And what are they telling you now about delivery?
Okay. Arrival date will be 9/22. Installation is complete at 10:15. Startup condition on or before 10:20. And then we can start production on 10/27.
Okay. If you don't receive a variance today and have to wait until your short variance hearing on September 12th, would you have to shut down your operations between now and then? Or could you simply curtail your operations between
Well,
now and then?
unfortunately, all of these aluminum parts have to have the deburring process done to them. So it's not like that it's not that part of them don't. Every single one of them has to go through deburring operations, so there's really nothing we could curtail.
So you would have to actually shut down production if you don't get a variance today. And what would be the consequence of that to your business?
Well, we're about $24 million a year, so that divided by the period of time, and we have 144 employees. So that would be pretty disastrous for us, and we're a public company, so I don't know what else I can say.
Pending receipt of the exhibits, I have no further questions on good cause.
I have a few questions, and then we can wait, well, and other board members might as well, and then we can wait for the evidence. But first of all, I'm looking at the rule 1430 D8, and it pertains particularly to, well, which part? Are you within 1,000 feet of a school, of any school?
Yes.
What school are you within 1,000 feet
I
of?
think it's called Richmond Elementary School, or Richmond Continuation School.
And it's an elementary school?
No, actually, it's a continuation school, which would be probably a high school,
Okay.
middle school.
And what about residences? How close are you to the nearest residences?
Both of those are probably right at about 1,000 feet. It's just within feet of whatever the rule is.
Okay. The petition that we're looking at, that was ultimately filed, is that the same petition with or without any changes as you say was sent by certified mail?
Right, except I did have a page where I added on it, and I said added on, I believe, 820, that I explained what happened. But everything else is the original petition that I had copied, along with the check and everything.
Okay. And then you also added the request for an interim? Mm-hmm. Okay. You mentioned that you had heard it would take a month to get a hearing. Did you call the clerk of the board?
You know, I don't know exactly. I know the reason that I wasn't expecting to hear from you is because I was told, I don't know if it was the clerk's office, it may have been, that it was going to take 3 to 4 weeks to get any information back. It wouldn't be instantaneous that I would get an answer on my petition.
You mentioned that it was returned for insufficient postage. Was there any postage on it?
No, our receptionist, I asked her to send it out certified mail, and she didn't. She just sent it out without anything on it. So she's.
Okay, so you said you asked her to send it certified mail. Did she? Do you have to go to the post office for certified mail?
No. We just fill out the paper and paperwork and give it to the postman.
And the person put no postage on it and thought it would get through the mail?
Well, I don't know. She's no longer with us. She was kind of had some administrative issues.
Did you attempt to go on the AQMD website or figure out how you are supposed to serve a petition?
Well, I went to the AQMD website to get actually to fill out the forms and printed them out.
Right.
And typically with any agencies like the water board or anything else, I usually send any kind of document certified mail, just so I know that you get it.
Okay.
And okay.
When did you get it back, or when did the facility get it
The
back?
same day I
company?
came back I got it back on the 20th, the same day that I came here and filed that petition, as soon as I got it back.
8/20, August 20th?
Right, yeah. I called the clerk, explained it, told them that I was coming down right away.
You mentioned there were 2 different checks cut?
Right. There was one cut on 7/16, and then I had to get another one cut on, which was for the variance amount. And then I had to get another check cut for $311 for the interim cost, the extra cost for an interim.
Okay, so that was what I was going to ask, what was the difference between the 2? Okay.
$311.
So when it first went out, though, it was not for an interim variance. That was not your request when you sent it in for certified
No,
mail?
it was for a short-term variance.
And can you just explain again briefly how you found out you needed an interim variance?
Because when I came on the 20th,
Okay.
and I brought my original check with me and all the paperwork, and I explained it, and she says, no. Then she explained to me she explained to me what an interim was.
You mentioned that there was a purchase order on April 30th.
Correct.
Can you explain what was done between the 21st of February, when the permit to construct was granted, and you received that, between then and April 30th?
Finances are pretty tight with our company, and it had to go through the board of directors and get an approval. And we had to get funding.
Do you know when the permit to construct application had been submitted to the AQMD?
No.
Do you know if there's anyone who was in contact with AQMD staff during, when applications are pending with the district? Is there a member of your staff that is in contact with the district when applications are pending?
No. It would be me, and probably any correspondence would have gone through Marilyn Potter, I believe.
And so did you know before the permit to construct was actually sent to you, or you received it on the 21st of February, whether you knew in advance whether it was going to be granted and you would be receiving it?
I didn't know, no. I just going on the 2/21.
And so your contractor, Clean Air, you were supposed to receive it on the 23rd originally of July?
I have my email here, just a sec.
It's a baghouse that had to be specially constructed?
Yes, the manufacturer's on the East Coast. And so on the 16th, 7/23/18 is the delivery date. So the week before, I called because we hadn't, I needed to give them shipping information because instead of them paying for the shipping, it was more reasonable for us to pay for the shipping. So I called and I wanted to set up the shipping information, and they said it's not ready yet. So then I contacted Clean Air Systems, and he said there's been a delay. There's been a delay in the manufacturing of it. I believe that the majority of the parts are done, but there's something with, I believe the HEPA filter system or something, there had been a delay from their manufacturer. I guess it went to 2 manufacturers, and there was a delay. So part of the equipment would not be available. And unless it's 100% there, we really can't function.
And what is the anticipated delivery date of it now?
Absolute promised drop dead date is 9/22/18.
So they didn't know until a week before and didn't even alert you.
Well,
And it's a 2-month delay? They had no idea that that would be.
well, they didn't contact me. I don't know whether they had any idea or not, but nobody informed me. And as I said, I was calling about the shipping information, and that's how I found out.
Was the Clean Air Company made aware that this particular piece of equipment was necessary for your company to be in compliance with rules or regulations?
I'm sure. I would imagine so, yes.
Was it stated to them, to your knowledge?
What, I'm sorry.
Did your company make Clean Air aware of that, of those requirements and the need to have this equipment in a timely manner, to your knowledge?
Yes.
Yes, you did make them aware.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Ms. Byrd?
Can you confirm for me the date when you spoke with Craig Morris again?
No.
No. Okay. How long does it take? I just want to go back through some dates because that's the important part of the good cause. How long does it take to get a check cut when you would file for the variance?
Oh, the same day?
Same day? And you filed, and you completed this form. It says that it's dated 7/16.
Correct.
Okay. And so you completed that and you got a check the same day.
Correct.
And the register that you have, that you made reference to, what is the date on that register as to when the check was cut?
Well, I printed the register August 22nd, and I went back through a date range of 7/1 through 8/22.
Okay, and what date was the check cut for the?
7/16.
variance? Okay. Can you take a look at the copy of the check that is attached to the petition? That's made payable to the AQMD for the short-term variance. Now, there's a date there, this is why I'm asking, because your testimony is actually inconsistent. There is a date there of 7/18 that the check was cut. Is that the correct date, or?
Oh, well, let's see. She's got the copies here. Let me see. Whatever the check date was, whatever the date on the check date is the check date, is the date that it was cut. I'm sorry if I made a mistake on the.
So actually, the petition was not filed on the 16th if the check wasn't cut until the 18th.
The day the check was cut was the day that I sent off the petition.
Okay, because the petition is dated on the 16th. I'm just trying to match up everything that you're saying.
Okay.
And then, has there been any curtailment at all? Any type of curtailment of production since you found out that you, one, would not be getting the equipment that you thought you would be receiving? I'll start there. You can answer that part, and then I'll just add something to that. Okay. And then two, since you filed for the variance.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have questions for Mr. Hathaway before we have, Mr. Balagopalan?
Mr. Hathaway, how are you currently in compliance with the rule? You said, is it done in an enclosure right now, the grinding with the plastic strips?
It's done in a closure with plastic strips, and we purchased HEPA vacuums, and what we do is we clean and vacuum the area every day. And also, we have a sweeper that sweeps the outside of the area, outside of where the walkways on the outside of the building.
And you don't have a current bag house or anything? It's not vented to a bag house
No,
currently?
no, it's not. No, when we built our building in 2016, that wasn't a requirement. As of 2016, when we built the new building and our old facility, we were meeting the requirements.
So when you were grinding in that existing building, the dust, where were they settling? Down on the floor, and some of it naturally would be airborne, right? So they were getting airborne and settling on the floor, and how were you collecting those sweeping? I mean, how were you collecting the dust
We collect it with HEPA filter vacuum cleaners?
currently?
Yes.
Okay. But there's no air control, no control on pulling no bag house?
No
bag house.
no whatsoever, no.
What kind of grinding stations do you have? Do you have swing grinders? Do you have handheld grinder? What type
We
of
have
grinder?
handheld grinders.
Are they all pretty much those small handheld ones? Or
Small, 12,000 RPM handheld grinders.
so you don't have any swing grinders or any of the other heavy-duty grinders?
No.
Do you have any billet?
We have a large wheel belt grinder that we use occasionally in that room, and that goes into, if the particles are bigger than, the very fine dust, it goes into a hopper.
So it's a downward collection?
Yes.
So this is more like a sander than a
Yeah, and it goes into a little collector in there.
collector? And the others are all handheld grinders?
Correct. Now, when we constructed our building in 2000, we have two operations. One's a deburring area that's in our old building. That's going to become our new bag house. The other building, in 2016, we bought dual draw downdraft tables that have a suction, a hole that goes through it, and then it goes through a HEPA filter inside. And those are separately contained. And for the new application, we have to gut those tables because they'll be part of a long baghouse stream. So,
So the existing ones are going down to a downdraft
that's correct.
collection when you are doing?
That's correct. Yes.
So are they operators standing or sitting when they're doing the grinding?
You're generally sitting.
Sitting?
Sitting down,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have stand-up stations too, or?
One or two, but generally everybody's sitting down.
Okay. So nothing bigger than a handheld grinder?
No.
Do you do any billet cutting? Do you have a billet grinder?
No.
No. Okay. Now, you said you have a school within 1,000 feet?
Well, the school of it, the grinding operations are on the back of the property line. And one thing that we had kind of contended, from the front of the property line, it's about 1,000 feet, but back where the grinding operations are, it's a greater distance, but the AQMD wanted to use the point of the front part of the property. So it's about 1,000 feet, just right in there, and it's the next street over.
Did you do a public notice, or did you have to do a public notice when you got the permit to construct?
I believe so, yes.
So a public notice was distributed? Do you
Yes,
know?
I believe so.
Okay. Okay.
I wasn't involved in that at the time. There was our general manager was running this project at the time. He's no longer with us.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that the mail came back. When did it was almost like a month later it came back.
Yeah, I have
Did
no
it get stuck somewhere in your facility, or?
I actually have no idea. I just saw it. It came to my desk on the 20th, and that's the day that I came down here. And I have no idea. I mean, I have no idea whether it was at the post office. I would imagine it was at the post office because anything that comes through our mail system, I usually get
But
promptly.
it could have been stuck somewhere and then it came later somehow?
I have no idea. I really- I
And you don't
don't-
have the envelope or the
I don't,
return stamp?
I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Bird and then Senator.
I'm sorry.
Senator, did you have?
No, I'm just trying to keep these dates in order, and I just have a question here.
Sure.
How long have you been with the facility?
Have I been with Guadalupe Forge? I was in accounting for the last 3 years, and I've been in facilities manager the last 6 months.
Okay, 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other question was, your statement previously was that you came in on the 20th of August, is that correct? To the district?
Yeah, I believe so. That was my check. The day that the,
I don't know, is the 20th,
Oh,
is
terrible.
the
Let me
20th a
see.
weekday? Yes, that was, the 20th
well,
would be,
I had the check cut on Monday I don't have my documentation in front of me. I'm
okay,
sorry, 'cause
so,
it's getting
so
copied. It's getting
the
copied.
20th would have been, is that a Monday?
Okay, the 20th was a Monday. I came in on Friday, the Friday before then.
The 19th?
The 19th. That was the day that I got that's the day that I discovered this happened. I came in that same day, and the clerk said that I needed a short and an interim. I had paid already for the short, but I needed a check for another $311 for the interim. So what I did on Monday the 20th, I had it cut and I sent to the clerk's office for a 10:30 a.m. delivery on the 20th, because she said I needed, in order for us to grant this hearing, I needed to get a check in there first thing on Tuesday morning, because Monday everybody was off.
Right,
So that's
okay, so it wasn't Monday, it wasn't the 20th at all?
yeah. The 20th was the day that the check was cut. I'm sorry. I gave her my documentation. So
Okay. You haven't, did I hear you say you had an environmental manager at this facility?
Maria Rodriguez, she's
You do?
right.
Okay, thank you.
She's getting the copies.
I think she's here. Is that?
Oh, Maria.
Senator had questions.
How long have you worked for the company?
I worked for the company since 2015. I've been in accounting that entire time, and then I've been in the facilities management for the last 6 months.
How long has this company been in operation?
Well, the company has been we were acquired by CIFCO, which is a Cleveland corporation, in 2011, and it had been in business for years and years prior to that. And probably at this 820 address where the bag house is going, probably since the 70s, I would imagine.
Well, when were they first permitted, do you know?
I have no idea.
Then is it likely they could have been operating without a permit?
Oh, I doubt that. I mean,
Well,
I have no idea.
maybe someone can tell us whether or not it's, hopefully, when it was first granted a permit to construct.
The permit to construct was, well, sorry.
Rule 1430, which is the rule they needed to comply with, was not adopted until March of
And
2017.
that's what they're seeking to be in compliance with.
And that's the requirement for the bag house and the permit to construct.
Well, they would still need a permit to be in operation even prior there too, wouldn't it?
They were exempt by the rule, for the grinding operation was exempt. It's only later, with the conjunction in development of Rule 1413, we removed, the exemption was removed to not get a permit. So they had to get a permit only when the rule was adopted.
On what basis were they exempt? So can one tell us?
Well, we should not be testifying on behalf or eliciting evidence from the board.
I mean, if you have, whatever the particle or that was being emitted into the atmosphere was being emitted based on its operation. So my question then is, to your knowledge, on what basis were they exempt?
I couldn't tell you. All I'm aware of is that we needed 1430. When we built our new building in 2016, we were compliant, and then in March of 17, our 1430 came about, and that's all I can really tell you.
in your application, petition that is, some questions that you did not answer in writing. However, upon questioning, you did try to explain why. For example, 14, item number 14 of the petition, explain why it is beyond your reasonable control to comply with the rule, et cetera. You said the manufacturer of the equipment is behind in production, is that what you're saying?
Correct.
And at what point did you learn that they were behind in production?
The middle of July.
Okay, well, the permit was granted February 21, 2018. Your purchase order was placed when?
4/30/2018.
And they given 6 months to construct.
Correct.
That would take you add 6 months to that, you're looking at July, August, maybe going into September. You're late getting out of the gate.
The installation per Clean Air System says it'll be completed on 8/24/18 or before.
When?
8/24/18 or before, which is right at our 6-month limit.
When you add 6 months to 4, when the purchase order was made. 4/30/18.
Correct.
You have 1 month, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 6 months. To construct.
What is the question?
The question is, given 6 months to construct, then one would assume that if you add 6 months to April 4, date of the purchase order, it takes you into October, is that correct?
No, the equipment was to arrive on 7/23, and the electrical installation and the equipment was to be installed and running on or before 8/24.
That was the initial schedule.
Yes,
That would have been in the 6 months time frame,
that's correct.
but you didn't make it, correct?
No, sir.
I think you may have answered this, but I need clarification. So the requirement is not just for the baghouse, but it's for the total enclosure and negative air. Is everything other than just installing the baghouse completed?
Just about.
Just about, can you explain that?
Well, the room has been demoed. Yeah, everything is, once the equipment comes, we're ready to go. Once the equipment comes, we're ready to go and install it. So.
Okay, wait, let me just stop you there. Did you say the equipment had to be moved into a particular place before? Is the equipment that is being vented to the baghouse in the appropriate place right now?
No.
Can it be in the appropriate place before you install the baghouse?
No, because the existing equipment that has to be moved are those dual draw tables that have electric motors and HEPA filters. And those have to be, once the equipment is installed, those have to be taken out and gutted, because we spent about $120,000 on these HEPA filter tables. And they have to be completely gutted out and installed in the baghouse because there's all the positive airflow going through. So those are standalone HEPA filter systems. So there's no sense in moving them from one place to another because they're functional filtering systems now. The time frame to disassemble the tables and move them is a day or two. It's very short, but we have everything in place with our air compressor systems and everything going now. If I tried to move them earlier, it would inhibit production.
What do you mean it would inhibit production?
Well, I mean, we've got an assembly line set up now. I mean, the whole goal was to move all the tables and everything in one weekend, once the equipment's in, and just knock it out there, because right now we have a, a production system set up. And it would be more efficient for us to leave the tables where they are now, and then we're gonna move them over to the new area.
And that would take one day only?
Yeah, a day or two. I have it all, we have the staff to do it. It's a matter of moving them, several hundred feet from one building to another.
And then once they're moved, nothing else needs to be done in terms of pressurizing the building or putting it under negative pressure?
No.
And is the building ready to just essentially plop in the bag house, or what has to be done with the bag house?
Yeah, there's a few things like, I've got to order the curtains that go in, where the roll-up doors go and things like that, a few minor things, but.
I'm sorry, can you explain the curtains with the roll-up doors?
Okay, I can show you a picture with this.
You could just explain, is that part of the negative pressure system?
Yes, it is.
And it is not yet ordered or in place?
Well, it's like a day to put up. What it is,
But wait, has it been ordered?
no.
Why not?
Because the last time I ordered them, Craig Morris asked me to install them in our new building. It took 2 days to get them. I mean, it's a pretty standard item. It's just strips of plastic that get mounted above a door. So you can ingress and enter and exit an opening door so the air pressure stays.
Is that something that could have been done before the filter is ready?
Yes, it could have. For example, Craig Morris asked me to install them in our new building, and I had them up and ready and emailed pictures to him with just within days. So, and the material's available anywhere.
So you still have to order curtains, install the curtain roll-up doors,
No, just
move the equipment, and remove the table filters from the equipment? Anything else that needs to be done as well to be in compliance with the rule, aside from waiting for the? Are you sure about that?
yes.
And what are you waiting for with the roll-up filters? Are you waiting for till you have the equipment and it's in place, or are you planning to do it now?
Well, I mean, that can be done at any time, but certainly during the time the equipment's being installed.
Anyone else have questions? I'm going to take from Mr. Balagopalan, and then I don't know if we should be introducing any evidence you have as well, but I'm going to let Mr. Balagopalan ask questions.
Oh, Mr. Hathaway, did you have to get any building permits and approvals, and have you got that out of the way?
I had an architect. There's no structural changes to the building, so our permit to construct is adequate.
No, I mean from the building department, not from from the city. Do you have to get approval from the city for any of the new construction? No. Now, besides the permit for the bag house, did you get any other permit?
No.
Just the bag house permit?
The permit to construct for the bag house, yes.
Now, I noticed on the your application, there were actually an application for metal grinding. Did you get a permit for that, or?
Existing? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were issued a permit to construct for that? Or,
Well,
you had applied for 3 different pieces of equipment on May 4th to 2017, 2 for dust collectors and 1 for metal grinding. How many permits did you get?
the permit we have here is the permit to construct, and it says air pollution control system.
So you only got one that permit to construct for that bag house system?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Senator had another question.
You went from accounting to production.
I'm sorry?
You were in the accounting department before, right?
Yes.
And you had no prior experience in production that's required of you at this point in time?
Oh, I had in prior jobs, yes.
And in production?
Yes.
Did you fill out the petition?
Yes. The petition, the variance petition?
Yes.
Yes.
A lot of the items here were left unanswered. I don't want to enumerate all of them, but some of them were left blank, like number 16, and some of them, even though you filled them out, were really number 22, not responded to. And the list goes on. I mean, number 24, you see, that's not applicable. Okay, well, fine, but you made no comments. Did you understand how to?
Well, how do you plan to monitor or quantify emission levels during the variance period?
We're not going to get into that right now because that's actually part of if we get past good cause, that would be part of, but did you have a point that you wanted to ask?
So you did have prior experience, yeah, as you said before, in production.
Yes.
Although your main endeavor at the company was in accounting.
I'm sorry.
The main job you had initially, until 6 months ago, was in the accounting department, yes or no?
For quality aluminum forge, yes, yes.
In your position, are you the supervising person, the one in charge of that production?
Of facilities, yes.
No supervisor in facility. You're the top person.
I'm the facilities manager, yes. But I'm not the top person in the company. We have production managers, we have general managers, and I'm just the facilities manager.
To your knowledge, is there anyone in that company who have a lot more knowledge and experience about this production operation than you?
Oh, I'm sure, yes.
Is there any reason why they didn't come down to make a presentation, nobody sent you?
Because I thought I had enough knowledge about this particular baghouse project because I'm very familiar with it.
In your honest opinion, you think anyone else in the company is equal to or greater knowledge about the baghouse than you?
Possibly, yes.
Thank you.
I had one more question, and then perhaps we can introduce any evidence you may have, or if you want to introduce a second witness for that evidence, you could do that as well. But you had a question? No.
I'll have a follow-up for this witness after you're completed yours.
Okay. And again, maybe you covered this. The equipment that will be vented to the baghouse, is it currently in a total enclosure?
It's it has plastic curtains that enclose the area, and it's not really a total enclosure, but it has plastic curtains in any openings.
Okay, so it's in a building with some plastic curtains.
Yes.
And are those different than the curtains with the roll-up doors for the total enclosure, the permanent total?
It's the same thing.
Same thing?
I can show you, I can send it pictures.
No, I'm just wondering if it's the same thing. Okay, it is the same thing. Okay. Ms. Feldman?
Thank you, Ms. Prusak. I think we're all having just a little bit of trouble with dates here. So I want you to get some clarity and be sure. I believe you testified that Mr. Morris, who is the district inspector, contacted you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you remember when he contacted you?
I don't.
Do you remember the month he contacted you?
I don't remember when it was.
And why did he contact you?
Because he asked me how the project was going and if we thought we were going to be late.
Okay, so the district actually did some outreach to the company, is your understanding, to find out how
Sure.
close are you to
Sure.
complying with your permit?
Sure.
With your rule requirement?
Correct.
Okay. Could that have happened in June?
Could have.
Okay. If it happened in June, why did it take you until mid-July to file for a variance?
Because I didn't realize the equipment was going to be delayed like this, for sure. I mean,
So what did you tell Mr. Morris? Did you tell him that you were on schedule when he called you? Or did you tell him that
I don't
you-
remember our conversation. I'm sorry, I don't remember our conversation. I know he
Okay,
did
that's
call, and
fair.
he was a real courteous guy and said, hey, the thing is, now, I've been led to believe, and this is just what my knowledge was, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I was told that if we were going to have delays, all I really needed to do, and I think I explained this to Craig, was that let Marilyn Potter know. And when we called, we talked about that, and I said, well, I thought all I needed to do was just let Marilyn know. And he goes, no, there's something in place, this is what you need to do. You're going to need to file a variance, and here's what you're going to need to do. And I said, thank you for letting me know. And so that's how I knew that there was a formal procedure.
Okay. All right, that's all right. We'll provide clarity with the witness ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hathaway, you had some documents you might want to
Oh, sure.
submit, and did you want someone else to testify, or is that something you want to present?
So would you like to, I don't know that you need to say, I don't know that you need to testify, do you? Can we swear her in or to testify in case?
You can be
there's
sworn
something?
in if you feel she will provide additional testimony on the good cause issue. Okay, so if you can come up to the seat next to Mr. Hathaway, and then I'm going to swear you in, and then you can sit down and turn on your microphone. You could stay standing, or just raise your right hand. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. And if you could make sure your microphone is turned on and pulled towards you, and if you could state your name for the record, spell it, and then provide your title.
My name, Maria Rodriguez, first name Maria, last name Rodriguez, Rodriguez. My title is EH&S Manager.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. Is there anything that you wanted to provide, or Mr. Hathaway, did you want to ask Ms. Rodriguez to provide some additional evidence or to introduce documents?
Not other than the fact that she can attest to, with this timing issue.
Okay, if you can ask her questions as opposed to providing her with any testimony.
Were you aware of this administrative hiccup we had here with the receiving the certified mail piece back?
Last week, I got a call from Sam saying that he had an issue that morning, saying that he received an envelope back from the mail saying that it was returned to him because it had no postage. And he said it was the envelope that he had sent in to SCAQMD with a check for something that he had submitted, some kind of permit. And so I asked him what happened. He said that he had given it to Yvonne, our receptionist, and told her to send it via certified mail. And he just assumed that she would do that. And that was the end of it.
I'm sorry, Ms. Rodriguez, do you have any knowledge of the interaction between Mr. Hathaway and the person who was supposed to send it certified mail, or is this just what Mr. Hathaway told you?
This is just what he told me. I was not present during the conversation, and I also didn't see the envelope. Because when I went back to his office, I asked him if he had it. And he said that he had placed it on top of the recycle bin in his office, and the cleaning person might have just thrown away the
Okay.
envelope.
And do you have any firsthand information or knowledge to present other than that testimony?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hathaway, do you want to introduce any documents?
Yes, I have copies of both of the checks, and I have the check registered details sorted by check number with date range 7/1 to 8/22. And we're a public company, so that's all, cast in stone there.
Okay, if you can just give us a moment to have that handed out. And did you give a copy to, no, okay, we'll have to make sure Ms. Feldman gets a copy as well. It's very small for my eyes. We have received what is entitled a check register detail, sorted by check number, and that is a 2-page document, and we're going to mark that as exhibit number 1 for the petitioner. We have a check number 208552, and we're going to mark that as exhibit number 2. And, okay, and that's it. That's a I think that's a 2-page document.
This,
No, we have, yeah. Do I have everything I should have? Okay. And then we have so this isn't part of that. And then we have a stub for a secret check on 8/20 for $314.06.
right, and yes.
And let me mark that as exhibit number 3. It's a separate exhibit. Okay, Mr. Hathaway, would you like to provide any additional testimony with regard to these documents?
This total, this is a check register out of our accounting system. It's the date range is 7/1/8/22, and it's actually a 26-page document, 27-page document, and I pulled the pages with the check information out, which would just be the 2 pages there, along with the check copies of the checks that. One is the original check copy, the 7/16 that was, or 7/18 that was in, 7/16 that was in part of that package. And the other one is just, you have the existing check of 8/20 that's just a photocopy of the check. Without, I don't believe that one's signed.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have any other testimony you wish to give on good cause? Ms. Feldman, do you have any questions on the documents we've received?
No, thank you.
Board members, any questions on the documents we've received? Thank you. Okay, Ms. Feldman, do you have any,
Yes,
I believe you do.
We do have a witness on good cause, so at this time, the district would like to call Inspector Craig Morris. Mr. Morris, could you turn on your mic? Could you state and spell your name for the record, please?
My name's Craig Morris. My first name's spelled K-R-A-I-G. Last name's Morris, M-O-R-R-I-S.
Did you take the oath this morning?
Yes, I did.
And what is your position with the district?
I'm an air quality inspector.
How long have you been an inspector with the AQMD?
Approximately 3.5 years.
Okay, I do have an exhibit that'll give copies. Okay, Mr. Morris, are you familiar with Quality Aluminum Forge?
Yes, I am.
And have you inspected that facility yourself at any time?
Yes, I have.
Since the adoption of Rule 1430, has the district been tracking the compliance of facilities that are now covered by that rule?
Yes, we have.
And in your estimation, has any extra effort been taken to do this, because this is a new rule only adopted a little over a year ago?
Yes, we have.
Okay. Who was your supervisor?
My current supervisor is Crystal Villanueva.
And prior to Crystal?
Frederick Gonzalez.
Okay. During the course of your monitoring the facilities that were covered by Rule 1430, were you given an instruction to call Quality Aluminum Forge?
Yes, I was.
And who gave you that instruction?
Our AQUAC, Mark Vanderow, I was given instruction by him to contact all the facilities that I had gone to regarding 1430 and give them notification on compliance due date of new buildings and so forth.
Okay. And did you, pursuant to that instruction, contact Quality Aluminum Forge?
Yes, I did.
And when did you do that?
I contacted them on June 15th, 2018.
And with whom did you speak at that time?
I spoke with Mr. Samuel Hathaway.
Is that the petitioner sitting at the table now?
Yes, that's correct.
And let me interrupt you for 1 minute just to mark as Exhibit A, the SCAQMD Facility Equipment List Report. That was just handed out.
Thank you, because that's my very next question. Mr. Morris, do you recognize the document that has now been marked as Exhibit A?
Yes, I do.
Could you explain for the hearing board what that is?
That's what's called our equipment list. When we go out do an inspection at a facility, we put information into our class, and it creates a timeline of different things and events that we do. So if I go out and do an inspection or issue something, I would document that into our class system. So it keeps a timeline of those particular inspections or compliance and so forth.
Okay, and the hearing board can note that in the upper right-hand corner of the document where it says inspector, that's your name, right?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm going to draw your attention to the bottom of the page where there's an entry that states, which identifies the date as 6/15/18. Do you see it?
Yes, I do.
Could you describe for the hearing board what occurred on that date?
On that day, I contacted Mr. Hathaway to advise him that regarding the permit to construct coming up on the deadline, that if he was going to be having any sort of delay on that, to contact the hearing board and ask for a variance for that. So I advised him on that day. He had indicated, which I've stated in here, that there may be some delay on the equipment delivery and installation. So at that point, I had advised him to contact our hearing board and that they would set a date and time to be able to come in here and see if he can get a variance on that.
Okay, so that conversation occurred on June 15th, 2018,
That's correct.
and you're quite sure of that?
Yes, I am.
And just to be completely transparent and above board, because I did mention that I spoke with Mr. Hathaway yesterday, when did you bring this document to my attention?
I just brought this document to your attention just now, today.
During the hearing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make it quite clear, Mr. Hathaway, it's not my job nor intention to ambush you in any way, but this has been brought to my attention. I have no further questions for this witness.
Thank you. Let me ask Mr. Hathaway, do you have any questions for Mr. Morris?
No, I don't recall saying that to him.
Sorry,
but-
if you would like to, we can come back to you if you would like to respond, but do you have any questions at this time for
No,
Mr.?
I don't know.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Mr. Morris? Mr. Balagopalan?
Did you, Mr. Morris, when you were there on, when was it? So no, initially you gave them a notice of violation in, when did you give that? I don't see the copy of it, but you issued them a notice of violation sometime in 2017 for not being in compliance with Rule 1430.
That's correct.
And that was mainly for which section of Rule 1430?
For total enclosure,
And that's when you recommended, or you told them about the plastic strips
that's correct.
for the total enclosure. Did you observe the grinding operation?
Yes, I did.
And how would you characterize the collection and the grinding operation, of the grinding operation?
Within that building, they have another type of semi-enclosure where they have the small grinding stations that Mr. Hathaway had spoke with before, that are within a, not considered a total enclosure, but have plastic curtains that go throughout, but have an opening at the top of the building. The building itself, within the building, I would say goes up about 20 or 30 feet. So they're, within their grinding stations, have the semi-enclosure with the plastic curtains up about 8 to 10 feet, but an opening at the top, so it's not considered total enclosure. They do have some small grinding within that, outside of that area, within that building. What they didn't have is they did not have plastic curtains with the, all of the entry exit points leaving that particular building itself. So at that point, I issued the notice of violation.
And did you notice any emissions from the building which was not enclosed?
No, I did not.
Were they grinding when you were there?
Yes, they were.
Okay. Now, you returned back there on June 15th of this year for a follow-up inspection. No, you did a follow-up inspection, I'm sorry, after the notice of violation, and I noticed that you, on April 11th, right, and you made a statement that they met the requirements of the notice of violation, P63875.
That's correct.
So they were in compliance with the requirements of the rule.
Yes.
Okay. And you were aware of the permit to construct that was issued to the facility?
Yes, I was.
And do you know, did they only get one permit, or did they, do you have the equipment list in front of you?
Yes, I do.
So how many permits did they apply for, and what did they get?
Excuse me for just a second. On this particular paper, I don't have the exact number. It just has application numbers on there listed.
Okay. And does it show if the permits were issued, or
No, it doesn't.
it doesn't? How many applications were they pending, or were they applied for, do you know?
When we're, can you,
Do you know how many applications they submitted for this new bag house system, and what they submitted? Does it
I only see one on here.
for the bag house?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's the one that, it doesn't show when it was, we know it's been issued in February of this year, right?
Not according to the document that I have. I don't know.
Okay, so that's the only one that's showing up as, that they submit. The reason I'm asking, when I looked at fine, there were 3 applications they submitted in May of 2017. And I can, application number 594066162, oh, sorry, 2, it's the same number, the 2 application, which doesn't make sense, but, okay. 5940661 and 062. So, do you know which one, let me see, let me check, which one was the permit to construct? 594061, okay. So that one has been issued. Do you know what has happened to 594062?
According to my document, it appears that it was assigned to an engineer as a Class 1 and then changed from Class 1 to 3.
The 62
6-1 was changed from Class 1 to 3.
or the 61? Okay. Okay, but this is permit to construct, so not sure why that would be the case. Okay, that's all right. Thank you.
Mr. Morris, I'm sorry, and you may have testified as to this, but this, this list report, you type this up immediately? What is the procedure by which you would type into the list report your report?
Okay, So when I report, I put the date that I'm discussing. So say on here where it says on 6/15, I contacted Mr. Samuel Hathaway, I would state that's the date that I contacted him. When I finished writing my report, at the very bottom there, I would list the day that I inputted that.
Okay. And and you keep these records with all of your inspections?
Yes, these are kept within our class system.
Okay, and this is usual procedure for inspectors to keep a list report like this?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, Senator.
On 3/15 this year, 8:20 hour, you returned to the facility, issued NOV. What was the purpose for that?
The room that they are currently conducting the grinding operations, they did not have meet the qualifications for total enclosure. So they were missing some curtains or roll-up doors, what was defined as total enclosure.
Here, earlier today, I asked a question about compliance. They said they're exempt. Were they exempt from anything at all?
Now, this is a new rule, 1430, that was adopted.
So exempted from that rule. Go ahead,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, this rule was adopted March 3rd of 2017.
So then on March 9th of this year, you visited the facility again and spoke to Mr. Hathaway. And I think you wrote here why. Would you explain the purpose?
Yes, I was instructed to go back to the facility to make sure that they were meeting the requirements of what was the timeline for total enclosure. So when the rule was adopted, there were different phases of the rule that were being, as far as deadlines, and the total enclosure was to be met by a certain deadline. They did not meet that deadline for what was considered to be total enclosure, whether it would be, like I said, having roll-up curtain or roll-up doors or curtains and 4 walls and a ceiling.
On the March 9th of this year, the 12 months has not expired, so they were at that point in time, or had it.
Yeah, they had been past the deadline
They did pass the deadline?
for total enclosure.
They passed the deadline, or they did not pass the deadline of 12 months?
Yeah, they needed to be within total enclosure by that time.
Or by that time?
Yes.
But the permit was not given until February. And they had 6 months to complete everything. Is that not correct?
So they have a room in which they are doing their current grinding operations, and the permit to construct is over in a different room that they're developing.
So 2 different locations?
Correct.
For the same operation, or?
Yes, as I understand, they're going to be moving all of their equipment once they put their air pollution control device in place.
So you spoke to them again or you signed this on April 24, 2018. You departed to the facility again on April 11th. You visited the facility again.
Yes.
And will you explain to me why?
So I had issued the notice of violation for not meeting the requirements for total enclosure on the current building that they're doing grinding operations in right now. Then after I'd issued the notice of violations, they went ahead and ordered the plastic strip curtains in order to meet that total enclosure. I went back there to verify total enclosure so that therefore they would meet the requirements of their notice of violation.
When did you first meet Mr. Hathaway at that facility?
I met Mr. Hathaway, on March 9th.
March 9th. But you visited the facility before then, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you met with someone else?
Yes, with another supervisor.
Was he a facilities manager?
He was a project manager.
Project manager?
Yeah.
Was there a facilities manager in place at that time, to your knowledge?
I'm not aware if there was a facilities manager or not.
What's the difference between the facilities manager and the project manager at that location, to your knowledge?
I would not know.
Senator, do you have a lot of more questions? Only because someone has requested a bathroom break, and I think it's time to take one. Someone has requested a bathroom break, and we need to take a break. Do you have a lot more questions? We'll hold them.
I can go.
Okay. All right, we're going to take a 15-minute break. Actually, let's make it a little less than 15 minutes. We'll come back at 10:45. We are off the record.
Sorry about that. You ask, I do. I just have one more question.
We are back on the record. Board members, did anyone else have any questions for Mr. Morris?
I think I was in the process of asking questions.
Okay, I didn't know if you were done. Okay, the senator was in the process.
Not done yet. Mr. Morris. On March 15, 2018, 8:20 an hour, you revisited the facility and you issued an NOV, which is listed here, and you personally served it to Mr. Samuel Hathaway.
That's correct.
Did he express to you at that time that he was a new, as part of his new operation, or had been in that position for a while?
No, he didn't.
You also determined that that date of violation was March 9th. That's when the violation occurred, is that correct?
That's correct.
That's when you inspected it. And you also observed that the grinding operation within the enclosure that did not meet the rule requirement of 1430, is that correct?
That's correct.
Well, were they required to meet 1430 by that point in time, or 6 months after the permit was issued?
They were to meet the requirements for total enclosure by, not for the permit to construct, but I need to refer to the rule
Yeah,
here.
I don't hear you. Come on, speak up.
I need to refer to the rule here, if you could just give me a second. Yes. Okay, so according to the D on total enclosure of DA, that they were no later than September 3rd of 2017. The owner-operator is conducting metal grinding operations in a building.
Yeah, that's D2A in the rule. If it's an existing enclosure, it has to meet certain rule requirements. If I may, I think you're conflating two separate and distinct projects and rule deadlines.
Okay, then, just so I become less confused, let me ask one follow-up question.
Sure.
On March the 9th, you returned and you spoke to the project facilities manager to inform them they had 12 months, the deadline required 12 months. And that's on March the 9th of this year, which means that which part of the project facilities area am I talking about?
The rule was adopted March 3rd, 2017. So in March of 2018, inspectors were going out to ensure that existing facilities were meeting the requirements of the rule. If you look at Rule 1430 D2, it states that an owner or operator of a metal forging facility shall conduct all metal grinding and metal cutting operations in a total enclosure that minimizes the release of fugitive metal dust emissions from passages, doorways, and bay doors by installing automatic roll-up doors, plastic strip curtains, or vestibules for doors and openings of the total enclosure.
So they were not in compliance with the existing rules, so they issued them NOV.
Right.
Right, so,
But that has nothing to do with their current intention to move the grinding
I understand
operations.
that.
Okay.
so what they were doing then is notifying the facility manager that, 12 months is a follow-up.
That was for the new,
The new, okay? But it also told them that, put them on notice that notwithstanding they had a permit to construct, they had a certain amount of time to fulfill the terms and conditions of the permit to construct, which is 6 months from the day that the permit was issued. Is that correct?
the rule sets forth.
6
in
months.
6 months.
From the
And
date that
that's
the
D8,
the date the permit
gives
was,
them 6 months after a permit to construct is
Right.
issued to
6
get the
months.
controls
which
in.
means that they put them on notice, Mr. Hathaway, that you had 6 months from the date the permit was issued.
The rule gives them 6
Yeah, I
months.
understand.
I'm-
The rules
I'm-
give-
Well, you're
The rules gives them
confusing
6
me.
months, so, but they were notifying them that you had 6 months.
No,
They didn't tell them that?
no.
What did
The
it tell
rule
them?
tells them that. But Mr. Morris contacted the facility prior to the running of the 6 months to ask them how they were doing. He didn't do that 6 months in advance. He didn't do that to say you have 6 months.
I understand all that
He
as well.
just called them approximately 60 days, well, whatever it was, to tell them that they needed to keep track of the deadline.
Well, they knew or should have known that the rule provided for 6 months to comply with the construct permit.
Yes,
And if, in the case they may not have known, Mr. Morris, nice man, put them on notice that, hey, clock is running. Is that
Yes.
correct?
yes.
I think I understand the situation. Okay, fine. So that was done. You gave them prior notice, that, Mr. Morris, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Even though expressing to them, relaying to them what the rules said once the permit has been granted. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions? Mr. Balagopalan?
Yes, Mr. Morris, when you did the follow-up inspection on April 11th, and you said they met the requirements of the notice of violation, that building where you said they had no roof, was that enclosed?
Yes, so what that room is a large warehouse. And within that warehouse, they have a smaller room with, that have plastic curtains that encloses except for the rooftop. So it's a room within a room with no roof on it.
So the external room had the roof on?
That's correct.
Okay, so they had a roof for that building where they were doing the grinding?
That's
So that's why that your observation was they were in compliance with the Rule 1430 then, for the total enclosure?
Yeah, they were issued the notice of violation because they didn't have what met the requirements for the big room. They did not have total enclosure at that
At
point.
that time, okay. So in your follow-up in April, they met all the requirements for the total enclosure.
That's correct.
So when the permit to construct was issued on February 21st of this year, they had 6 months from that date to install the bag house and have it under negative air, the grinding operation.
As I understand, that's something that engineering would be working with them on that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Ms. Byrd?
Mr. Morris, do you know, or do you remember if you spoke to them regarding how long a variance takes to be scheduled?
I did not discuss any timeline as far as variance.
Do you personally know how long variances take to be scheduled?
I do not.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Morris? Ms. Feldman, do you have any other witnesses for good cause?
No, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hathaway, you had indicated when I had asked if you had questions for Mr. Morris that you had more to say on the matter. Would you like to add that as your part of your closing? Because I believe that you rested in terms of when I asked if you had any other testimony or evidence to give, you had rested your case. Would you like to give your closing at this time for good cause?
Well, I do remember Mr. Morris calling on 6, now I see 6:15, that's when he did call. I did talk to him. I don't remember telling him that we were not going to meet the deadline specifically, but don't really remember the conversation. But once again, once I found out in July that we were not going to meet the deadline, I immediately asked for the variance. And I know that I was told that there was a time frame involved in getting a variance, and the only other person, if Marilyn didn't tell me, or if Mr. Morris didn't tell me, it must have been the clerk's desk that told me, because somehow, and I got it in my mind that it was going to be 3 to 4 weeks before I would receive any notice, and that's all I can say in closing.
Okay. Ms. Feldman, any closing on good cause?
In light of the best evidence that I think we have before the hearing board here this morning, which is the business record produced by the district inspector, the district must oppose a finding of good cause in this case. It seems clear that there was a conversation with the facilities manager on June 15th, at which time the district inspector was certainly given the impression that there would be a delay in the installation of the equipment, an impression clear enough that he actually advised them as to how and that they might consider filing for a variance at that time. I understand that there was a snafu when it did come time to filing the variance petition. I was skeptical. I think I characterized it to people in my office as, this looks like the dog ate my homework kind of excuse, but sometimes the dog actually does eat the homework. And in this case, I believe, Mr. Hathaway, that the petition was mailed without postage. I believe that it took weeks for the post office to return the petition. I believe that the check was cut on July 18th, as it is dated and recorded in their ledger. But I also now know that that was a full month after the company was told that they should seek a variance because they're not going to make the deadline. And you can't get an interim variance under those circumstances. There was plenty of time to have a short, there was actually time to get a regular before the 6 months would have elapsed by which they would have had to have that baghouse installed. And so under these circumstances, the district is opposed on the basis of good cause.
Thank you, Ms. Feldman. Board members, anyone wish to begin? Ms. Bird?
I would agree with Ms. Feldman that they had adequate time, and even if we looked at our guidance, part of it, and it was mentioned, and it's included on the information there, is that the petitioner has to exercise diligence in petitioning for the interim variance and scheduling the interim variance. And diligence is petitioning for the variance, meaning that the petitioner filed a variance petition as soon as feasible after the time petitioner knew or should have known, not just knew, but should have known that a variance would be needed, more than likely. And when I see that the inspector did speak with the facility in June, and at that time the inspector actually documented that they didn't believe they would meet the deadline. That was in June. So there was already at least some knowledge that there was going to be a problem even before the date that facility spoke with the manufacturer of the equipment in July. I also want to say that this is what we're finding has nothing to do with individuals, but it has to do with the facility. So if this is not the petitioner, if this is not the witness that could have provided the maybe more accurate information or more succinct information or whatever, it really doesn't matter. It's the facility that did not meet this obligation and not those individuals who are before us today. But I cannot find that the facility exercised diligence in filing a petition when they knew or should have known as of June that they would not be able to meet the requirements.
Anyone else? Mr. Balagopalan?
You know, I'm stretching it, but I think I can find some good cause here. Mr. Hathaway, I think he testified that he realized on this July 16th, that's when he actually realized that he was not going to, the equipment's not going to arrive. So, and then once he got that information from the company that was going to supply the bag house, then he took action, but there were comedy of errors, but not putting the postage for the check. I mean, when they submitted the petition, it looks like the check was cut on the 18th. We have the check registered to show that. We don't have any proof it was mailed. It could have sat in the office and maybe not mailed in the, but it looks like it got returned. And I'm also looking back at the fact that they issued the PO somewhat timely manner when they got the permit to construct on February 21. They, it takes a little while to get the money and the approval. They issued the PO and on 4/30 for the bag house, and they were hoping to get delivery and get installed, even though the I think Mr. Hathaway testified it was probably 8/23, but there was a rough day. They were hoping that they'll come and they will have it installed prior to the 6 months deadline. So unfortunately, it's beyond their control because of the supplier was not able to meet the deadline. And I think when he found out, based on his testimony, that they were not going to meet it, then he submitted the petition, but again, we know what happened there. So, and I also am heartened by the fact that they were issued a notice of violation for not doing it as per 1430, but then they took action to enclose it and met the requirements of the existing for total enclosure 1430 as testified by the inspector. So, and it looks like their current operation, from what Mr. Hathaway has described, is not the best control, but it is being controlled. So I'm willing to give the benefit of the doubt and be able to find good cause. I'm willing to find good cause.
I have to say that oh, go ahead, Senator, you had.
Mr. Hathaway, based on the documentation and evidence submitted by the district, even your testimony, the district went above and beyond the call of duty to try to inform you what the terms and conditions of the petition, permit were. And the fact that the facilities manager was informed that there had been violations. You were given notice that there had been violations. Also given notice that there were a timeline that had to be met. During your testimony or response to questions, there's so much you could not remember that was pertinent to your request that you knew or should have known, but you didn't remember. Didn't remember dates and times and that action should have been taken or could have been taken. So I must tell you that I support the district in its recommendation, but you still have left to attain a short variance. And when you come back in a short period of time, you better improve your memory, I think. You have time to do that. This is not a shut down and shut out. It's to really give you the learning experience. what the board will be asking of you, the data and information you have to provide them. Some of us here are experienced in your business, having worked in the aerospace industry, understand forging and burring and all that other stuff, and what happens in that environment. PM, particular matters that submit into the atmosphere and under certain conditions. You understand this district is in business to clean up the air and protect the health and safety of the people in this immediate area. You have to work with us to make sure that happens. So this is a learning experience for you, for me as well, about your company. And they've been in business a long time. Could have had some other legal advice help you along the way, prepare you for this presentation in some way. Anyway, I have to support the district. It's not often the district take this position of saying no. And after done as much as they have done to assist you in this effort. And I concur with their suggestion or recommendation. I just can't go along with it.
I have to say that I agree that I cannot find good cause. I think there's something not right or something we were not hearing in the testimony. We heard that the first time Mr. Hathaway says that he understood that the equipment would not be there in time was in July, mid-July, but yet we have a document, Exhibit A, it's the only document we have, written on the very same day as the conversation, which makes it all the more credible in terms of its content. There's no lapse in time. It's a document that's kept in the ordinary course of business, that inspectors fill these out all of the time. And it states that it was his belief that there was a statement that the facility was probably not going to be able to meet the deadline, and that variance information was given. That was in mid-June. Why? We didn't hear anything other than in mid-July, a whole month later, they finally heard for the first time that there was equipment that wouldn't be ready. Well, why then in mid-June was there a question? So I think there's something we are not hearing or we do not know. And so I have to go with, as Ms. Feldman stated, with the best evidence that we have, which is this form, which is kept in the usual course of business. I also believe that when a facility needs to comply with a deadline in a regulation, it is their obligation to check in with their suppliers. If the purchase order was put in April 30th, to not even hear from your supplier until July, it seems to me there should have been some back and forth. Even the district checked in with the facility several times to say, are you meeting it? Are you meeting it? But yet the facility didn't seem to feel it was pertinent to check with their supplier to see if there were any delays or if everything was going to be on time. And I think that was their obligation to do. We also heard that the total enclosure has not yet been even made on the building. And even if it does take 1 to 2 days to get the curtains and a day to hang them up, the deadline has come and gone, and I know that their equipment's not in there yet, so it's not like that is a violation in terms of, but that's something that still has to be done, and I don't understand why that wasn't done either. It just seems a bit of a nonchalant attitude over something that is 1,000 feet from a school. And that's not something we would normally go without public notice on. And finally, I want to say that there's a lot of questions with regard to the mailing on the 18th of July of the petition. Of course, you know, mistakes are made, but not putting postage on is, we have to give that to the facility, not the individual who did it, and there should have been a lot more oversight. But even if that was filed properly on the 18th, we heard testimony from Mr. Hathaway that it was his understanding, he doesn't know where he got it, that it would take a month to get a hearing. Well, it's not a month from the 18th of July. Oh, yes, it is. I'm sorry. It is a month to the 18th of July to the 21st of July. But regardless, I guess if that had been filed in a timely manner, we wouldn't have had to hear an interim variance. I was thinking that that was August 18th, that it was July 18th. But regardless, I can't go back and I can't overlook the fact that there was something we did not hear in the testimony with regard to something in mid-June that caused the facility to not believe it would make its deadline. And at that time, there should have been a filing of a variance. Anyone else wish to weigh in on that? Would anybody wish to make a motion at this time? Ms. Byrd?
I'll make the motion. In the matter of, put my glasses on. In the matter of Quality Aluminum Forge, case number 6118-1, I move that we do not issue the interim variance for failure to find good cause to issue the variance.
I will second it if you amend your motion to be, the board cannot find good cause to hold a hearing on the interim variance in absence of notice to the public.
Thank you, I misspoke. To hold the hearing on an interim variance in the absence of notice to the public for a failure to find good cause.
And I will second that. Any discussion on the motion, other than to explain it, again, this is a motion not to hold a hearing on the interim variance, knowing that a short variance petition is pending for September 12th. Our hearing is pending for September 12th. I want it to be clear because I don't know if you understand the motion. The motion, which we're going to vote on, is not to hold a hearing because we could not find good cause to do so in absence of notice to the public today for an interim variance. However, that will have no effect on the scheduled short variance hearing, which currently is for September 12th, at which time the petitioner may make its case for a short variance. Any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Balagopalan, how do you vote?
Sorry,
Vote
no.
no. Dr. Lerner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Senator, how do you vote? Yes. I vote yes, and Ms. Byrd votes.
Yes.
The motion passes 4-0. Sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm not discounting your vote. I'm just a little out of it. It passes 4-1. So at this time, we would not hold the hearing today, and we would be back on the 12th of September. And that's it. Any other comments you wish to make?
I just wanted to second some of what the senator mentioned, and that is when you come back with all your ducks in a row, and because we do look through this information. So no conflicting dates, please, and specifics as to when and what happened.
Anything else, Dr. Lerner?
Yeah. Have the least experience as an engineer in the engineering that you deal with, but not the engineering that I deal with professionally. I do think it would be very helpful in terms of clarity if you could provide us with timelines, any kind of drawings or cartoons or sketches so that we can see the relationship of the buildings to each other, where the bag house is, where the materials will be, where the new machinery will be transferred. That would be, and also, the relationship to the community, which, of course, is what this is all about. Thank you.
Senator?
I have 18 years in your experience, including anodize. You got it? Be ready. Just have all the answers. And nobody's going to be against you. They're going to listen with an open mind. All right?
Okay, good luck to coming into compliance, and if not, we'll see you on September 12th. So this hearing is over. We are going to, should we go right into the general meeting, or would we like a break before that time? A break, is 5 minutes adequate? Let's take a 5-minute break, and then we will re-adjourn. I'm sorry. come back on the record at 20 after 11 for our general meeting. We're going to stay here. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all. We're off the record.